Hi, welcome to the Brief Book Reviews channel, otherwise known as An Old Guy Reviews the Book that he's read this week. So what's the old guy read this week? Well, the book I've read this week is this one. It's called A Particularly Nasty Case by author Adam Kay. Was published as a hardback here in the United Kingdom by Orion on the 28th of August 2025, and it's the author's first novel. It isn't, however, of course, the author's first book. Adam Kay is probably best known for his memoir, which was called This Is Going to Hurt, Secret Diaries of a Junior Doctor. It was in the Sunday Times best-selling list, sold 3 million copies, translated into 37 different languages. So a very, very successful book of stories of clearly his exploits when he was a junior doctor, and that's been followed by a couple of other books. One was called 'Twas the Night Shift Before Christmas, and another one called Undoctored. So the author's got form, but this, as I said before, is his first novel. It probably won't come as too much of a surprise to learn that it's got a medical theme, and whilst I think of it, for those of us that like a nice hardback in their hands, a proper book rather than anything else, there's a nice looking cover on this book as well, a syringe there and a nice white cover. So for those who like their hardback books, keep an eye out for that. But less of the waffle, Cliff. What's it all about? He says, trying to put the book together so it doesn't fall over. Right, the book is about, the central character is called Eitan Rose, spelled E-I-T-A-N. Now, I'd have pronounced that Eitan, but we're told that it rhymes with spray tan in the book, so Eitan Rose. Apologies if I slip into Eitan as I'm doing the review. He's a consultant rheumatologist at a hospital called St.Judes in Paddington. I don't know if there's a play there on St. Jude. St. Jude, of course, is the patron saint of hopelessness and lost causes, and some would say Eitan is one of those, but that's by the by. Eitan's bipolar. He's a very good doctor, but he's got problems with mental health, and he's had a few issues in the past. In particular, his sister Elodie died when he was training to be a doctor, and it was felt that he should have recognised the symptoms of her disease, which caused her death. So he's got that carrying with him, and he, as I said, he's bipolar. He's got some issues, but he is a good doctor. So the book starts with Eitan returning to work after a 4-month layoff. He's had an episode. There's been a tribunal. He's been passed fit to go back to work. And he's not exactly raring to go, as you can imagine, but he's looking forward to, getting into his clinic again, dealing with his patients, because he knows that's what he's good at. He's got good empathy with his patients. What he doesn't like are the procedures, some of the other doctors in the hospital, but he thinks, let's get on with it. Goes to his office, sees his colleague Margaret Corcoran, and realises that half his office seems to have disappeared, and there's been a bit of a rejig of offices while he's been away, and he seems to have been almost shoved into a corner and forgotten. His secretary Nina points out the fact there's a pile of paper yay high that needs dictating. So he's like, oh, here we go, welcome back to work. Not to add to his slightly worried complexion is the fact that he's got a clinic today, and as part of his agreement to get back to work, the medical director of the hospital, St. Jude's, a guy called Douglas Moran, will be sitting in with him. Now Eitan and Moran don't exactly get on that well. Moran is old school, old-fashioned discipline. In fact, the students call him Volder Moran. So he's thinking, oh well, here we go. So he does a clinic. Moran, is a bit picky with, so when are we going to get around to seeing some patients? Eitan, get a move on. So end of the first day, it's like, well, that was a tough one, but I'll be okay. Things move slightly better when he builds a relationship, a romantic relationship with one of the porters in the hospital called Cole. Cole Porter, anybody? Famous song, Anything Goes, and sure enough with Eitan, anything does go. So things are jogging along relatively nicely. It's worth pointing out that there's a lot of humour in this book. In fact, it starts off, it's almost a laugh a minute, and it sort of calms down a bit as you go through the book. So Eitan is an unconventional character, put it that way. Very humorous, very sarcastic, and it's very rude. Don't give this to somebody who's of a nervous disposition who doesn't like profanity, because they might be a little bit upset. But anyway, back to the plot. One day they find out that Douglas Moran, the guy, Eitan's nemesis, has died, and apparently heart attack. Now Eitan can't get his head around this, because he knows Dr. Moran was effectively boasting to him while they were talking that he was basically fit as a butcher's dog. He's had various tests, and he showed no signs whatsoever of a heart condition. And Eitan's thinking, well, a lot of people don't like this guy. He's ruffled a few feathers. He's stopped people getting promoted. There's a whole long list of people that don't particularly like him. And he gets into his head that this guy hasn't died of natural causes. And in fact, somehow he's been murdered. Eitan's friend, Mo and Fiona, they've got a WhatsApp group, and they're going, oh no, he's on one of his missions, what's going to happen here? And sure enough, Eitan gets convinced that something's going on in the hospital. Furthermore convinced when there's another murder in the hospital of Moran's replacement. So a lot going on. We've got the relationship with Eitan and Cole. We've got Eitan and his friends Mo and Fiona, who are trying to keep him on the straight and narrow. And they're both saying to him, look, you don't want to get involved in this, but Eitan can't help himself. And we have a series of fairly idiotic events where Eitan gets almost in a downward spiral, some with Cole, some on his own, where he's trying to find clues and find proof and find leads to find out what's happened to the deceased Dr. Moran. So that's basically the story. It's Eitan battling against his own demons, battling against his friends saying, leave it alone. And let's face it, the police and the coroner are both absolutely happy that Dr. Moran died from albeit a rare heart condition, but a heart condition. So we've got that battle going on. So it's a really funny book, lots of humour. It's quite rude in places. As I said, if you're of a nervous disposition, probably not for you. The only thing I'd say, it's quite a good little murder mystery. Personally, I clocked who the perp was, early doors, but that may not be the same for everybody. So nice, cozy. I was going to say cozy crime. It's comedy cozy crime, I guess. So nice little story. There are some very humorous moments in it. I just felt, as I said, most people will probably clock who the perp is fairly early, and also some of the scenes where Eitan is trying to gather evidence, it becomes almost slapstick, and I wondered if in order to get more humour in, some of those events are a little bit unrealistic. But it's a book, it's fiction. So it's an enjoyable enough read, 322 pages. As I said, author's got previous for writing his memoirs and has been very successful. So not a bad first effort. The only thing was, as I said, I think it's a little bit telegraphed through the purpose and maybe at times a little bit of an overdose on the humour. But nevertheless, worth a read. It's 322 pages. It won't take you that long to read. And you'll have a good chuckle on the way. So I think that's it for this week's brief book review. Thanks for watching. 10/10 till we do it again. Bye.